Hey everyone, I'm Jill, the Wandering Stamper. Today we are going to have some fun with this mirror fold card. It's going to look a little scary, but once you make one, it's pretty easy, and I've actually made a template for you, and I'll post that on my blog, so that way you can refer to that. It'll make it a lot easier to cut and score. We have two different designs that I created to show you, and we're going to make the one with the fun little belly band. So as you can see, I'm using the Cheerful Daisies suite. I love the paper. I'm almost out. I'm gonna have to get some more, and we're gonna use some fun colors to create this card. So I hope you like the card, and let's get started. Okay, I think we are all ready. As you can see, we're using the Cheerful Daisies suite. I love this paper so much. I've almost used it all up. So today we're pulling out some scraps. We are going to make a mirror fold card, which opens like this. It's really cool looking. It's mostly scoring and folding and then cutting the little pieces to go inside. And we're gonna create one with a belly band. And I've decided to use the new Bubble Bath pink, which is this pink color. It coordinates really well with this designer series paper. As you can see, all I have are scraps, but I think the scraps that I have are enough to make this card. And then we also have some Moody Mauve. I'm gonna use that for the band, and have some stamped pieces that we're gonna cut with dies. So let's get started with this. So the first thing you're gonna wanna do is get out your paper cutter. The hardest part about this card is the initial base, but once you do that once you make it once or twice, it's really not that hard. It's just kind of the first time you make it, it's a little awkward, but it makes sense once you put it together. And again, I have put a template on my blog so that you can refer to that. So you're going to start out with your card base, and it's going to be 5.5 by 10.5. I have a 5.5 inch wide piece of paper, so I am going to cut a 1/2 inch off because, as you know, it's 11 inches long. So we'll cut that 1/2 inch off. So now we have a piece that measures 5.5 by 10.5. So once you do that, the way I like to do it is, so we're going to score at 3 1/4 and no, I'm sorry, scratch that. So we have a 5.5 by 10.5 inch base. We're going to score it at 3.5 and 7. So 3.5. Make sure your cutter is out of the way. Whoop. All right, so we're going to score at 3.5 and at 7. This is why you really have to have this cutter, because I love that extendable arm. It comes in handy. So once you have those score lines, now we're going to do some tick marks. So the first score line at 3.5, what I do is I see my score line. You may not be able to see it here. I'll mark it with a little tick mark. But my little score line's right here. So what I like to do is put it right on the edge of this bar, and we're going to be marking a tick mark at the 2 inch line. And as you can see, there's measurements on this clear arm, which makes it super easy. So I make a little tick mark at the 2 inch line. Okay. Then I'm going to flip my card upside down, and on that 7 inch line, score line, we're going to do the same thing. We're going to score down at the 2 inch mark. Just put a little score line. If you use this pencil, I have this linked below. This is the Bic pencil. It erases really, really well, so I like to use that. So once you have your 2.5 inch mark, you're going to line up your corner of this piece of paper with the tick mark. So the clear arm lets you see where your tick mark is. So I kind of put that tick mark right in the middle, and then you're going to score down to the tick mark, and you have a line here so you can kind of see where you have to go. And it's okay if you go a little bit over. You can use your bone folder and straighten that out. Then you're going to go the opposite way. You're going to again line that tick mark up, and then you're going to line it up. Remember that 7 inch score line. So we're gonna line it up to the top of that, and we're gonna score again, okay? So now you have 2 score lines, and as you can see, actually, I may have scored my paper wrong. Did I do this at 7 or 7.5? I've done this before, so I wanna make sure I did that right. Yes, 7 and 3.5. When I first made this card, I scored it incorrectly, so just wanted to check that. Okay, so we've got a score line from here to here and here to here. Now we're gonna do the same thing for the bottom score line. So you're gonna line up your corner with your tick mark as best you can, and then score that, okay? And then you're gonna turn it and do the same thing. You're gonna line it up with the 3.5 inch, that 3.5 inch score line you made, and your tick mark, and score it again, okay? So what you're left with is you have this piece and you have this piece, all right? So once that's done, when you fold it, you're going to first, on this side, you're gonna fold backwards, okay? And then you're gonna fold this inside, so a mountain fold and a mountain fold and a valley fold. So it's gonna fold like this, okay? And then you get your bone folder and give it a little crease. So that's that side. And then you're gonna do the opposite on this one. So this one is going to be folded like a valley fold, okay? And then you're gonna fold this forward like this, okay? So your back looks like that. Make sure all your lines are lined up. Give it a good crease. I just like to burnish it pretty good. Okay, so there you go. So that's the hardest part, is getting this piece done. So now once you have this piece done, we can set this aside, and we're gonna cut our other pieces. So we're going to have designer series paper. We're gonna have 2 larger pieces, and they're gonna be cut at 3 1/4 by 5 1/4. So I have scraps here, and it looks like my scraps are gonna be big enough, so I'm gonna cut my 5 1/4. Now it's good on this card not to use directional paper. I am waiting for those new blades to come in. They should be in today, because you don't wanna have to worry about which way this needs to go. So use non-directional paper when you create this card. So we've got 2 pieces of 3 1/4 by 5 1/4. So I'm going to cut this at 3 1/4. All right, just like that. And then I'm going to cut my other piece, 3 1/4 by 5 1/4. That is 5 1/4 by 3 1/4. Okay. So these are our 2 big pieces, and then you're going to have 2 smaller pieces, and they are going to be 1 3/4 by 3 1/4. So again, I'm using some scraps that I had. So 3 1/4. And then 1 3/4. And you need 2. There's 1 and 3 1/4. And 1 3/4. 2. Okay, so you're gonna have 2 small pieces and 2 large pieces of designer series paper. So on the now that you have your 2 designer series paper pieces, we're going to do the same thing we did before. We're going to mark at 2 inches. I'm using my arm, and I'm just And actually, if you look, there's a 2-inch line right here. Pretty close to that. So, well, it's a little bit off, I guess. So just go with the line on the arm. All right, I'm making a little tick mark. And now I'm going to line my tick mark up with the corner of my paper. And I'm going to put my cutting blade in the middle because when you cut designer series paper, you can make the edges get a little janky if you don't start it in the middle. All right, so there's that. And so as you can see, that piece will fit right there. So we're going to do the same thing with this piece. So we're going to mark it at 2 inches. All right. And then cut. Okay, and we can just set these 2 pieces aside. And so this is the other piece right here. So those 2 pieces are done. Now we're going to take our 2 smaller pieces and we're going to cut those diagonally. So you're going to cut one diagonally this way, like this. And then you're going to cut the other one diagonally this way. And that'll make sense on why in just a moment. Okay, and just cut those. All right, and that is so you have them fitting on here. So we've got a piece here, and then we've got a, let's see, piece here, and you just kind of like a puzzle can figure out where they go. That piece goes there, and that piece goes there. So if you didn't do opposite directions when you cut those little pieces, you would end up with a piece that only matches on this side. So that's why you have to do that. So we're going to set this aside, and we have one more piece to cut. We're going to get a piece of Whisper White, and you could use Very Vanilla depending on what paper you use. And the Whisper White is for the center saying, and it's going to be 3 1/4 by 5 1/4. So 3 1/4 by 5 1/4. All right, and then guess what? We're going to do the same thing. We're going to take that 2-inch line, make a tick mark, and we're going to cut that off. Okay, and then we're going to do the same thing over here. And I'm going to put my blade on again. One of these days I'm going to get this fixed. It only seems to happen when I'm doing a video. Very annoying. Okay, so now we're going to line these up as best you can. Cut those, okay? So now you have a piece in the middle like that, okay? So now if you have to flip it over to get it to fit, because that's the way mine fits, and you have that cut edge, all you have to do to fix that, I'm gonna move this out of the way, is take your bone folder. This is a really good hack if you mess up your paper, your stamping, and you have to flip your paper over. Run your bone folder over your cut edge, and it looks the same now on both sides, which is really nice. So that's all the cutting. So as you can see, that was the hardest part. So now what I like to do is kind of lay out all my pieces so I know where I'm gluing. And I'm going to use liquid glue because I like that moment that it gives me to get everything repositioned if I need to. So I just kind of like to lay out all my pieces to make sure that I know where I'm going with it. Look how pretty this is. Okay, so those are all laid out. So I'm going to get my silicone craft sheet, which did not get out so I don't make a mess. and my liquid glue, and I'm just gonna start placing these pieces. So I'm just going to put a little bit of liquid glue on here. Try to stay in your camera. And then just lay this down. And then just kind of, you really want to make sure the straight edges are straight. There's a little gap difference here, and it really doesn't show once the card's done. So just make sure your edges are neat and crisp right here. So I'm going to work on this piece next. You could use your Stampin' Seal if you wanted to. I like to use the liquid glue for this because it's a little bit more repositionable if I want to move some things around a little bit. So as you can see, I can kind of wiggle it around a little if I want to, and I like being able to do that. Okay, I'll do this one. And I'll do this one next. See, as you can see, the liquid glue lets me wiggle it a little bit if I want to reposition where I've got it, which I like that. Okay. We are still in Colorado Springs. We finished a trip to Badlands National Park with our kids and grandkids, which was so much fun, in Custer State Park, which is my favorite park. And I think this weekend we're gonna go visit my younger two kids who are in the Boulder area. But other than that, we're kind of hanging around in one place, which is rare for us. My husband signed up to be a camp host, which is keeping him busy. Got a little smudge right there, which could be my pencil mark. Just erase that off, we'll fix that later. So he's been putting around the campground, cleaning up campsites and stuff. He's always wanted to try it out, and the perk to that is you can stay at the state park as long as you're a camp host there. Normally, you can only stay in a state park 2 weeks and you have to leave. So we end up every summer having to move a lot to be able to spend the whole summer, and it's hard to find campsites in Colorado because in summer it's their popular season for camping. So we decided to try this out, see how we like it, and be able to stay in one place, which happens to be right outside the gate where my oldest daughter and her husband are stationed. And of course, that's where the grandkids are. So I like being close to where the grandkids are. So that is kind of where we're at on our summer travels right now. We may go off for a couple of little camping outings here and there, but we're basically in one place, which is nice. And then we have a beautiful view of Cheyenne Mountain from our campsite, so we can't complain. Okay, so those are all glued down. This little smudge is really bothering me. I do have an eraser that will fit. If you don't have one of these erasers, these are great. I've had this thing for probably 20 years and it's still good. It will erase adhesive. That was my problem. I had a piece of adhesive. Okay, so that is done. So now we're going to create a belly band to go on the front. I like the belly band. I think it's kind of fun because it gives you a way to kind of keep the whole thing corralled together. You don't really have to have it. You can just open and close it. But I think the belly band's kind of fun. I made this one a little bit tight. There we go. So we're gonna do that next. So what I did is I used the radiating dies, the radiating shapes dies, radiating stitches dies to create this piece, which I felt like it worked out really well for the front. So I use this size. This is a really neat die set because you can make frames with it. It's got a couple of shapes. It's really a lot of fun, especially for making frames. You can make different dimensions of frames and everything. So if you haven't seen this, take a look at it. It really is a nice set. So what I did is I cut one of these out in the bubble bath paper because we want to coordinate all of our colors. And then I cut a 1/2-inch strip of Moody Mauve, which is also in that paper. So this will be our band. And then finally, using the Cheerful Daisy stamps and the coordinating dies, look how well loved these stamps are. Let me tell you, I use these a lot. It comes with these great dies. There's a tag die. There are all the dies to cut out the flowers. I really love this cluster that it has. And then it has a second layer that you can cut out that goes on top. So you could really make 3-dimensional flowers. And then of course it has some matching greenery. So these are really great dies. They did a good job creating this. So what I did is I stamped some leaves in wild wheat because it matches the paper. Because as you know, we want to make sure we pull in all our colors and coordinate. That's the beauty of Stampin' Up! Is everything coordinates. Then I created some of these little leaves or branches in Moody Mauve, again, so that everything matches. And then I cut these 3 flowers. I stamped them first in wild wheat. I stamped off, so I stamped off on scrap paper so it wasn't quite so dark, and stamped the backgrounds. And then I used the bubble bath for the middle, and then I lightly stamped the same stamp with Moody Mauve, so it gave it some extra color. So I cut 3 of those. And then this card is for my dear friend Melinda. I was in Badlands and ran out of stamps and didn't have a post office nearby to get her some stamps for her birthday card. So her birthday is late. So she gets an oopsie daisy, so sorry, on her sweet card. She is one of the sweetest people I've ever met, and I just love her to death. So I got to send her card even if it's late. So these are the pieces. So now we're going to put them together. So I think the first thing we're going to do is build this piece. So I'm going to grab my Take Your Pick tool and find my dimensionals in this mess. Here we go. So I think what I want to do first is put this on with some dimensionals. Since this is a belly band, we can give it some elevation and let it pop up. So that's exactly what I'm going to do. I'm just going to use 3. And then I think I could place it. Gosh, there's so many places you could place it, but I think I'm going to put it here because I want as much room as possible for my plants. All right. And then you want to kind of figure out where you want your flowers. So we could put one here. Now, the nice thing about the belly band is your flowers can totally hang off if you want to, which we might do that. So we have these little pieces here. I kind of like to lay out what I think I want to do, and then create it from there. So I don't want to cover up my words, but I think maybe something like that. This could go over here. That's good. Okay. So for these, because I'm going to tuck the ends under, I think what I'll do is use some mini glue dots because I don't care if it shows or not because it's going to be tucked under. So I'm going to use my Take Your Pick tool. Love this thing. I use it all the time. Find my dot. Actually, I think I might do it this way. So I'm just going to put this dot on the bottom. peel it up. And then I'm just going to place it all the way under because I don't want the dot to be showing. And then I'm going to use the same, I'm going to do it the same way over here. So we'll put a little dot here. You could also ball this up if you wanted to, or you could use a thin stream of liquid glue, but that gets a little tricky, so it's really awkward to do this and stay in your camera view sometimes. It probably would have come off a lot easier with your take your pick tool, but whatever. Okay, I think I'm going to tuck this one down here. All right, so there we've got those. Now for these, I think I'm going to use some dimensionals and have them pop up, but I want to put my dimensionals so that they're not going to be above this pink piece, this bubble bath piece. So I'm going to put one here. I know I'm off camera. There we go. And I'll do another one here. And we'll put it, where do I want to put it? I think we'll do this one here. And see, you don't need a dimensional to be here because this piece is already raised up. So I think I'll put this piece here. Dimensional toward the bottom. I accidentally flipped this piece of paper over that was on my dimensional, so of course now it's sticking. There we go. All right. Maybe right there. Now where do I want to put this one? Let's put it over here. I think it looks good there. So since this is going to hang off here, I think I'm just going to put a little liquid glue behind this part. It doesn't really need a dimensional there. This is why you work on a silicone craft sheet and not your paper. Don't know why I did that. All right, since now I have glue on my paper. All right, we're gonna put that piece there. Look how pretty that is. All right, and then put this right over it. Get this back out so I don't do that again, because the glue will not stick to the silicone craft sheet. All right, now we just want to tuck our flowers in. So, our leaves, I should say. So I'm just going to take a few of these. I don't think I'm going to use that one. And I'm just going to put some glue on the bottom. And then just figure out where I want to tuck these. So maybe we'll tuck one right here. And let's see, tuck one here. Where should we put this third one? Let's do it right here. Okay. So cute. Look how pretty that is. That could be a card all by itself. And I love how delicate these are. Very pretty. All right, and to finish this off, I think, because I'm addicted to Wink of Stella, Someday there could be an intervention for that. I'm gonna make the center of the flower sparkle a little bit. Paint a little of this wink. If you've never used Wink of Stella, oh, it's one of my favorite embellishments. It just adds it's clear, but it has a little glitter in it. So it adds a little sparkle. So pretty. All right, so that's done. So to create the belly band, super simple. You just want to wrap it around the card. This might be longer than I need it to be, so I'm gonna you don't want it to be too tight. I'm gonna give it a little snip because this paper's a little longer than it needs to be. We cut that off. And so that's all you do to it. And you just want to make sure that it will move, and it will. So then you could either use I think I have it here. Now on this you could use your stamping seal, or you could use your liquid glue. I'm gonna go ahead and, oh, look at this. I have an old adhesive. This is the old Stampin' Up! Adhesive. Might as well use that, right? Whoop. Throwing stuff now. It's getting crazy in here. So I'm gonna put some down and just make sure this is nice and straight. Okay. And I'm gonna make sure that fits. And I'm gonna leave the seam on the front because it's gonna be hidden by this, all right? So now that that's attached, I'm gonna add a couple more dimensionals. And I know that this fits pretty much across the whole front. So I know I can do several. I know how many dimensionals I can add. I just don't want them to go too far. So put them like this. And you could just glue this piece down if you wanted to. I'm just gonna use the dimensionals. A, I think it's easier, and B, why not make it a little bit more elevated? And then once that's on there, you just center it on your card, just like that. Look how pretty. So now, there's my card. Open it up. You can leave this blank to write in, or if you want, you can even add a message. So I think I'm gonna add this birthday message to it because it is her birthday. And I think we'll do this in Moody Mauve. So I'm gonna ink it up. This is a new stamp, and it's pretty juicy new stamp pad, so I want to make sure I don't overdo it. All right, and then I think I'm gonna line it up right here. Okay, stamp that off. Clean that stamp later. So there we go, there's our card. It really wasn't that hard once you figure out the base. Like I said, the base is the tricky part. So let me show you everything. So here's our card. Again, we used the Bubble Bath, the Designer Series paper, and pulled in all the colors, the Moody Mauve and the Wild Wheat. Everything got pulled in so that you have a nice color coordinated card. The belly band goes on nicely, I swear. Okay, there we go. Look how pretty. So there's the one we made just now. This is the one I made earlier, and I used the Lemon Lolly, which is another new color. Basically the same card design. I created the belly band using the Pretty Peacock, which we have in this piece of paper. And then I used the Lemon Lolly center for the flower and added some Wink of Stella. And then on this third card, I didn't use a belly band. I just embellished it with some Wild Wheat ribbon, and I cut out the dies for the flowers and added the center. And then I added a little brass butterfly just because I wanted to add a little extra sparkle, and it fits nicely into the card. So there you have it. There's 3 different mirror fold cards for you. I think my favorite are the ones with the belly bands, just because I like that they will stay shut. Although, you know, this card really isn't made to stand up, but it really is pretty, so somebody could easily just prop it up on a table. But it's a fun card to make and a fun card to give. So if you enjoyed this video and want to see more, don't forget to like and subscribe to my YouTube channel. I appreciate that very much. And also check out my blog at wanderingstamper.com. It will have all of the cutting dimensions and measurements. It also has a nice template that I drew out for you that shows you exactly how to lay out the score lines. And of course, all of the products are available in my online store, as well as some craft room must-haves that you can order as well. So I hope you have a wonderful day, and I hope you enjoyed this card, and I will see you next week with another exciting fun fold to try out. Thank you very much. Have a great day.